Do you think, and this is something that happens a lot in Mexico, people say, I'm not making a commercial film, I'm making a festival film, an art film. Do you think that's possible to choose beforehand? Like,
Yeah, so of course. It's not unique to Mexico. People say that all the time in people say that all the time in the United States as well. I want to write an artistic movie.
yes,
The problem with that is, who's going to pay for that movie? What's the budget of the film? If you want to make a movie that takes place in your apartment and you've got enough money or a credit card and you can finance the whole thing yourself, you can do anything you want. But my point of view is for people who want to write scripts that they're going to go get financing from the government or studios or networks, or they're making movies that cost more than they can afford to do themselves. And as soon as you ask someone else for money, then they need to know this is going to turn a profit. And you don't make money at festivals.
yes, I'm sure.
If you go to a festival and people see it and they want to distribute it, then you can make money. But you don't make any money at the festival itself.
Yes, thank you so much. Do you think there are scripts that should be abandoned, or do you think like all scripts can be fixed through hard work and rewriting?
I think definitely there are scripts that should be abandoned. Just like there are paintings that should, and sculptures that should, and songs that should, and so on. Okay,
that should be fine.
Your question was, should you abandon? Yeah, I think that a good writer knows that they've got to try a lot of things, and sometimes they work on it a while and they realize this just isn't working. And so rather than beat my head against the wall, let's try a new idea. Now, I don't think you should make that decision after just a week. I think you want to stay in there and do your best to do it. But sometimes, you have to abandon something, but you have to realize that the next one will be better, and it helped teach you your craft.
So how do you know when a script is finished?
Somebody buys it.
When it gets made.
That's right.
That's actually a very good answer. Very good answer.
But I mean, and even then, I remember once I read that in an interview, Robert Towne, who wrote Chinatown, one of the greatest scripts ever written, said he saw the movie and he thought it could have been better.
Wow, that's amazing.
He wished he could have had another draft. So if he's not satisfied, I don't know any writer that will be perfectly satisfied, but it reaches a point where you feel like you've done as much as you can, and, it's going into production, so there you go.
Okay, for my next question, do you think these formulas work for all kinds of cinemas? I mean, like cinemas outside of the U.S.? Audiences from Mexico?
I haven't lectured in Mexico before, and I haven't worked with Mexican screenwriters on Mexican cinema before. However, I have in Sweden and Spain and England and Scotland and Canada and America and Australia and Israel. And I have yet to find any cinema where these principles do not apply. Now, I think there are other things, like I haven't lectured in India. I know Sid Field has, and I think Linda has. If you go to Bollywood, let's say, there are other things that they also need to add to their film that we may not be talking about here.
Like dance numbers.
Basic principles of story are the principles of story. And here's what I would say. Look at the top box office movies in Mexico for last year. And look at how many of them were Hollywood movies.
All of them.
Yeah, maybe not all.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Okay, so the principles we're talking about obviously work for Mexican audiences. So that means if Mexican filmmakers and screenwriters employ these principles, they too can reach Mexican audiences, let alone other international audiences.
And now, for my last question, do you think we should write in Mexico for our budgets? Should write stories that are easier to make within Mexican budgets, because it's hard for us because we see Hollywood budgets and it's so big and so spectacular stories.
Well, here's what I would say. The short answer is yes, because you need to write within the boundaries of the industry you're pursuing. Now, if you have a great big budget script, just because you're in Mexico doesn't mean you can't pursue Hollywood. So if you had a script for a big action movie, something like Transformers or Independence Day or one of those big special effects movies, you might be able, if you can translate it into English, you might be able to market it to Hollywood. But most of the work is going to be in Mexico, and to have a chance of getting it sold, you're going to have to stay within the budget that that the industry can support. Mm-hmm. But here's what I would say. Mm-hmm. Between budget and story is more important.
Wow.
Okay, better to have a great story that's too expensive than a weak story that's cheap.
I see your point.
Because the thing is, there's so many things can be done on film now. Usually with most stories, you can find a way to make it much cheaper. Mm. Not every story, but a lot of... I mean, you take a movie like Bridesmaids, mm-hmm. Okay? There's no reason that couldn't have been made in Mexico.
You're right.
And that was a huge hit. And so was The Help. And so was... But Harry Potter, no. You're not going to make Harry Potter. But actually you could, because you could make Harry Potter more cheaply. Just take away some of the demons and do it that way.
Take away the magic.
Story's the most important thing always. First thing.
Well, thank you so much. That's it for me